Are we going to war with China? That's the topic of today's video. And in fact, we got some crazy headlines. This is just an hour ago. U.S. House panel plans Taiwan war game with Wall Street executives. A committee was formed to focus on potential threats from the Chinese Communist Party. And it's interesting because if you look at this photo, this is the House Committee Chair Mike Gallagher's, I guess, featured there. But it looks like they're playing Monopoly. And I laugh because it actually reminds me, but the true story, kind of like this Game of Thrones, the TV shows, last movies, how they have like this kind of war room and they move the, pieces around, like your army's there and their army there and we're allies with these people, etc. And if you look at that picture here, I mean, that's what it looks like. I say it's Monopoly, but they got all these different chips and stuff on the table. And essentially what it is they're talking about if we were to have some sort of conflict with China and if, China wants to take over Taiwan, etc., what would be the economic implications? And evidently, everyone likes a good war room map with Monopoly board pieces. Can't make this stuff up. Let's read the headlines here, or sort of the details. The war game participants include representatives from investment banks, including, in addition to current and former executives from pharmaceutical companies, and retired 4-star U.S. military officers. The committee declined to name the financial executives who will participate. So evidently it's a bit secretive. And essentially there's just so much money involved between the two, countries. You guys know this. Moreover, you can see the bipartisan delegation will also meet other financial executives in New York as the committee steps up to scrutiny how American investment in China could undermine U.S. national security. Basically, we're depending on each other. And there's so much money flowing on either side, right? On Tuesday, they have scheduled a hearing that will include testimony from former Chair, Secretary of the Exchange Commission, Jay Clayton, and Jim Chanos, the hedge fund short seller. Here's a couple quotes here. The systemic risks that come with American capital flowing to China and how banks and other financial institutions think about their investments in China and the exposure to the Chinese economy in the event of a political crisis. Moreover, here's another quote. Important that our committee hear from the financial industry about how CCP, right, the Chinese Communist Party, policies are affecting Americans' savings and investments and what Congress needs to do to help protect American investors and our national security. So this is about money, it's about security, it's all kinds of things. And you guys know we are in a bit of a trade war, though, to be honest. Yesterday we were just talking about the video where China was banning the Apple iPhones, and I remember the details was something like basically government employees can't bring the iPhone to work, nor can they use them. And, who knows how broad this will be, but it is a thing. However, the Chinese government be crazy these days. This was a headline just yesterday, also a weird one. China wants to ban clothes that hurt the nation's feelings. Like what? If you ask regular Chinese people about this stuff, they'll tell you the truth too, that the government be crazy. It is a real thing though, that the government, tries to restrict people's freedom, internet freedoms, freedom of speech, these kind of things. And, theoretically, you could try to ban certain clothes that hurt the country's feelings, be it, you're wearing an overly American costume or outfit, or overly Japanese outfit, or overly Korean outfit, etc. Like I said, regular people aren't really so thrilled about this. Generally speaking, people want freedom. They want to buy and sell whatever they want. However, it is a real thing, though, that the U.S. did accuse Huawei of basically spying on us and stealing technology. So that's been a thing. And then sort of like the tit for tat is that, China hit back saying, hey, we're going to start banning the Apple. Now, whether or not this goes into computers, right, this is the iPhone at the moment, but whether or not it goes to computers, anyone's guess. It's sunk in the Apple stock recently, and this is actually an important time because Apple's going to be announcing the new iPhone 15 soon, right? And essentially, when they make these announcements, you got to convince all of these people around the world, not just USA, but it's all around the world, hey, you got to buy the new 15. My understanding, I was looking at the 15 that's going to come out. I don't think it's anything revolutionary. The only real difference is it looks like it's probably going to have USB-C, which will probably be pretty attractive to a lot of people. And I think that's due to regulations in Europe that's like, hey, you can't use that lightning cable anymore. And I have an iPhone. I got the 13 and I think it's fine. So we're at the 15 and maybe I'll upgrade on the 17 or whatever. That for me personally, the next upgrade that I really want is the flippy phone. If Apple comes out with a flippy phone and USB-C and and also to wireless charging, all this stuff, it'll be a big hit. But I'm sure at that point it'll be like $3,000. Mark my word, I'm sure it'll be expensive, and we'll see. Now the issue is that Huawei released their phone. I remember they were under sanctions essentially, and it was ZTE was another one, and they came out and it turned out like they had technology that they shouldn't have. Basically, like their chips are like too good, and so like, are you stealing from us? And so this has sort of been the investigation that's been going on. Now, moreover, it's interesting if you've ever been to China, and I lived in 3 different cities, China. I lived in Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen. I actually write about it in my book, which I recommend you're reading if you're interested about my adventures in China. Please check it out. It's called Positive Angle on. You can pick it up on Amazon, and I think you'll like it. But I want to mention though is that when you're in China and you see like Huawei store or Xiaomi store, they're looking pretty good. Their tech looks good. I mean, you can see this here. I think the one on the right is probably going to end up looking very, very similar to the iPhone. And if you look at the way their stores are designed, like the tables and just the way the signage, all that, it's a direct replica of the Apple iPhone store. So this is a common thing that you'll see in China, like Huawei or the Xiaomi. And these kind of phones, they took a big hit after the ban. So like you can see here, in 2021, Apple like really made a lot of gains from 2020 to 2021 in terms of the market share. So that's this dark red part here. However, Huawei coming back and putting out a good phone, which essentially this announced thing here could really dent Apple, plus a ban on Apple, right? So certainly this matters to Apple quite a bit, and all American companies. You're concerned like, okay, are we in a trade war? What's going on? And how's this going to hurt our bottom line? And therefore, that's why they're even doing these things here. We put more segments on whatever companies. How's that going to affect American investors, et cetera? And that's why they're meeting with Wall Street and playing essentially a war game Monopoly. I keep laughing because it's just funny when you see this picture, but that essentially is what it is. It's like, and you don't need to set it up this way. It's just I think boys like to play with toys, and that's what it is. Moreover, guys, this is interesting. I mentioned this several times that as the U.S. we should make more and better friends with India and Vietnam. I keep saying that, so it looks like to be the case. So. Headline here, U.S. says India is disappointed. Xi and Putin aren't attending the G20, so the meeting of world leaders. So, Russia and China basically aren't sending their, main people. So President Xi and Putin aren't coming. But Biden, he's got a chance to talk with India and, Vietnam. This is sort of essentially, what you want to be doing, which, in my opinion, you want to make as many friends as you can. I do think the U.S. has been too slow in not making friends in Africa, and just generally speaking, you want to make friends if you can. But to be fair, it's really hard to make friends with countries that maybe don't treat their people so good. And this has always been the trade-off, and this is essentially the deal you had to make with China is like, well, we're gonna make money, but we're gonna turn a blind eye to your sweatshops, that kind of stuff. And again, it's stuff that I do mention in my book if you are curious about that stuff. Also, too, China's investing heavily in the USA. Like, for example, this is just today. Chinese battery maker picks Illinois for $2 billion factory. And essentially, I guess Illinois, it says here, they're providing incentives of $536 million. This is a common thing that states do or / governors is you want business to come and you want to create jobs. And it's essentially Chinese money coming in to create American jobs. You can see 2,600 jobs, $2 billion facility, gigafactory. It's going to start next year. And it says here, the plan is focusing on lithium-ion battery cell, battery pack production, and energy storage systems. So probably there's going to be a lot of jobs. And if you're looking to get into, technology and a career for a while, I think lithium-ion, this battery cell stuff is probably be a thing. I know there are other ways to make batteries. There's been a lot of talk that Japan's trying to invest heavily in like longer range than say some stuff with like Tesla's got. But this is going to be, the future. And evidently to Illinois, they're saying here they want to go into where is it here? Quantum computing, life sciences, and electric vehicle manufacturing. So it's complicated, guys, because, the money goes both ways, and it's hard to be like, hey, we're going to ban your companies and then also expect you to still invest in us, right? And it's the same way in both sides. Like I didn't say countries, both sides can say, hey, we'll ban here, but we'll take your money there. And so how does that even work? And I mentioned this documentary several times, but I'll mention it again. If you haven't seen it though, it's called American Factory. It's over on Netflix. It really shows like how complicated this topic is when Chinese money essentially comes in and gives American jobs, and then wants to manage the American workers. And then the documentary is really interesting because then it takes American managers to expose them to what the working life in China is like. And I just mentioned it because I mentioned in my book as well. Like these topics are really, really complicated, and check these things out if you haven't. Moreover, this has actually been an interesting one. This just came out yesterday. Chinese car sales hit record high for August on export growth. So basically, you're going to see more Chinese cars around the world. And in fact, I guess they're saying here they delivered 2.24 million cars. So that's what, 35% increase. And this is actually a chart of, you can see here the automakers' EV sales. This is around the world here. So U.S. makes a third of it, right? So that's the black box here, and that's in 2020. And actually, we'll look at 2023. So actually, the U.S. has decreased market share. Then you got the Germans, right? They make cars. They've made cars for years. The Koreans make cars as well. And then you got China here, which is the light blue, and then France, and then other. I think France, I think one of their bigger brands is the Peugeot. And I don't even know if you can buy those in USA, but I will say you do see French cars. I know I've seen them in, obviously, Europe and in France. I think I've seen them in Korea. I'd have to look for them. I would know a Peugeot is when I see it. You'll recognize the logo, etc. But I don't think we sell them in the USA. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. And then the other, like for example, there's the meme stock of late was the VinFast, which is the Vietnamese car company. But I think India makes cars too, like the Tata. There's a competitive market. And I want to point this out too, which is kind of funny. Just the other day, this was last week, my wife and I, we took this picture. I saw this little like car, and like, what the heck is this thing? And what caught my attention is that it had an EV license plate on there, which I thought was really interesting. Like, and I think these kind of cars are really designed for cities. So if you're like, hey, I'm not buying one of these things, it's not for freeway. I mean, this is basically a golf car on electric golf cart with essentially rain proof, because golf carts aren't really great for the rain or anything like that. And for me, when I was looking at this thing, I actually think it would be reasonably practical, especially in these kind of cities. And I'll just tell you guys, so I live in Korea. I don't like driving here because the streets are too narrow and parking is really limited. And you have to park, essentially like in these, I mean, you can see the street here, it's just really narrow. And basically we walk everywhere. So we get exercise and we take public transit, which is really good. But, if I ever did want to have like this sort of thing to drive around the neighborhood, this would be really good. It's way better than forking out money to buy, a full-size car, because it's going to get scratched. There's nowhere to park the thing. And it's just a waste when you should be, I'm saying for us, we just walk around anyway. But these kind of vehicles will probably be big hits in places that are highly congested. And true story too, when I lived in USA, there are some neighborhoods that drive around golf carts. That's a real thing because they're convenient. So we don't necessarily have this kind of stuff so popular. I think I want to say in LA, sometimes I'd see the smart vehicle, which is kind of similar to this. I think was that a Mercedes one, I think. So we may see more of these, but essentially the main message I want to get to you guys today though is that the ties between China and US are so deeply connected in terms of the money crossing lines. Apple's got factories in China. Several companies, it's not just Apple, but I think Intel, or not maybe Intel, but maybe HP has got factories in China. It's Tesla's got factories in China. I mean, there's many of the clothes makers, et cetera. There's all kinds of stuff. And I think, like I said, I think probably the China-US relations are strained at the moment, and essentially also too, the Chinese worker is more expensive than say in India or Vietnam. So we'll probably see some shifts there. So please share your thoughts on this thing. I like to hear it, and hopefully this is helpful and useful for you. Always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.